14 minutes past 8 this morning. Anthony Moyles is with us. Anthony, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning, gents. All good. Sorry about that. A few technical difficulties.
No worries. We got there in the end. Speaking of technical difficulties, what's going on with the Dubs?
Yeah. I don't know, Jerry. I think the old the talk of their demise is maybe a little bit exaggerated. There's no doubt about it. I think there's issues, and I think Desi Farrell and his management team will probably sit back. A lot of people would say you learn a bit more from losses. Well, I think there's a couple of worries. Okay, there's probably worries that they have. They've tried a lot of players in the O'Byrne Cup. And, there's definitely a number of positions that they have to get right. I think there's a number of positions that they're deficient in. And I think then there's also the psychological effect that the mask is slipping a little bit. And that teams are now kind of, whereas before, like we used to discuss this and you nearly wouldn't discuss Dublin because it was kind of like, well, we've said giving them all the plaudits and we've said all the things. And actually you got that sense that when teams were actually nearly playing against them, they weren't necessarily, they were playing for something else rather than the win. They were playing to try to get their own system right, or they were playing for something else. Whereas now, you get the sense the teams are saying, actually, we can go up there and we can have a right good cut at these lads and actually beat them. So, there's a number of things there, Ger.
Let's talk about the style of play. Are we seeing, is this early season difficulties when you're trying to establish a new style of play because you actually don't have the personnel nailed down and so therefore it's not that important? Or is there an absence of style of play feeding into the fact that we're not sure who the best players are?
I get the sense, it's funny, like if I saw a lot of people talking about Kilmacud through the championship and into the Leinster Championship campaign. And it was this kind of thing where they were saying, Dublin football, and even if you remember a couple of the late stages in the Dublin Championship, people were saying it was desperate football. It was very formulaic. It was very kind of safe. It was very kind of, going across and back. I have to say, the performances on Saturday night, it reminded me, Owen probably won't like this, but as a Spurs fan, I remember even the very, very good Arsenal teams of, 10, 12 years ago, they used to just play this football an awful lot, where it was just kind of across in front of the back four. It was just tipping across, constant movement of the ball. Looks really good, you're moving the ball very nice, loads of fellas getting lots of touches. But really the effectiveness, you're kind of going, Jesus, every now and again it would work. But you were kind of saying that literally you were nearly boring people to death. And I have to say, Dublin weren't really of that the last number of years. They were much more, direct. They were much more aggressive. Fellas, going for the jugular an awful lot more. Whereas now they seem to be playing in this, you can nearly preempt what's going to happen. A fella comes down the left wing. If he doesn't do a backdoor cut with his corner forward, comes in the loop, he passes out to him. Another player comes across, he takes it outside of him, he goes across the pitch, you go to the far side of the pitch, you do the same the far side of the pitch, it comes back into the middle, and you're kind of going, well, we've seen this again, we've seen this, and as long as you're disciplined as a defence, which Armagh were for by and large parts of the game, and you're not fouling, well then, it's pretty easy to defend against. And I know the guys were saying on the commentary, Fitzmaurice was saying that the first half there was a serious lack of movement inside. Well, two things happened there. One, there wasn't probably as much movement as there should be. And I definitely didn't see a full forward line really busting a gut to make space and to switch runners and to cross and to develop that space in front of the D. But also, there was a real lack of vision by the players outside. There was fellas, who had the opportunity to put the ball in, and it didn't really either A, they couldn't execute the pass, or B, they're so kind of trained now over the last while that no, the safer option is to just recycle the ball and come out and look for someone coming on the loop. So I think to answer your question, Jared, I think yes, there are some, I suppose, some tactical things that I think maybe that they're trying to introduce, because I think a lot of people had a go at Desi last year and they were saying, oh, you fellas trying shots from everywhere, and you wouldn't have got that under Jim Gavin's days. So it's kind of like everything he tries, you can kind of see he's trying to bring a bit more discipline into it now, but maybe they're actually overcoaching them now, and maybe they're getting into a situation, as I say, where that bit of aggressiveness, that bit of flair, that bit of, actually let the ball do the work type thing is not there at the moment.
and allowing for a bit of spontaneity, I guess, as well. Like I'd almost wonder if the outcome for Dublin this season would be better in this direction, or would it be better if they went back towards the 2013, 2014 era, where in the half-forward line you have a Diarmuid Connolly-esque player who is capable of kicking that pass that you're talking about there, to try and build a team around a traditional number 11 as opposed to the lateral hand passing and the fluid situation on the half-forward line?
Like I kind of looked at the championship. I looked at a lot of the games over the weekend, and I think teams are falling into two certain pots at the moment, and it's very, very obvious. There's the one style which is, as I said, formulaic, safe, disciplined. You're not going to give a whole pile away. And then what we're going to try to do is, on the counter-attack, we'll try and catch teams to fire. And then it's all about transition and speed of transition up the field and all that. And then you're relying on a couple of forwards. And really, when you look at Armagh did that very, very well, okay? They were kicking the ball when they got out of their defence. They were leaving lots of space up top, for O'Neill to operate in. And then that's what they were looking to try to do. But the opposite side then is, and I'm not seeing as much as this. And and when you think of the traditional teams that would be fast, kicking the ball long, as you say, have that bit of spontaneity, they're even falling into the first pot a bit. And I think maybe as the season goes and as the ground hardens up and you come into championship time, I think you will definitely see two styles. And one style will be a devil-may-care attitude. And I don't mean that to sound kind of frivolous about it, but I think you need to have that spontaneity. You need to have those players, and you need to unearth them. If they're not in your squad at the moment, I really think you need to go get them. And I'm kind of scratching my head around the championship or around the county, the country, and I'm kind of saying which teams have them, and which teams have kind of jettisoned them. And they probably need to get them back, because I do think that it's the thing that will unlock defences and will actually give you the capabilities to go and win All Irelands, and give you that kind of sense of, well, we can play it either way here. Because I think if you're in one way or the other, or certainly if you're in the first pot, as in trying to keep it tight, trying to be very, very disciplined, overly formulaic, I don't think you're going to win the games that really count in the championship. And my fear for Dublin, and I'd say this is something that Dessie Farrell will have to look at, is, does he have the players to come back who can give him that? Like, look, we know there's loads of players to come back, right? You've O'Callaghan, which is a massive, serious difference up front. And you have plenty of fellas to come in around the middle of the field and into the back line. But actually, it's this forward line that I actually worry. I look at it the other night, and I'm kind of thinking as a defender, I'm saying, you know what? There's not too many guys there that are really scaring the daylights out of me anymore. There's not that much movement. There's not that much... there doesn't seem to be much fluidity between the players. There's no real understanding. And I know it's early, but they definitely, we used to say this about Mayo, that they needed to unearth an inside forward or two every year. Well, Dublin are in a bad need to unearth an inside forward this year, and a guy who can really take the mantle of the league on his shoulders, be Archer or one of those guys, and really have a go at the championship.
Is it possible Brian Howard is an 11 and not a 6?
Yeah, I didn't think he was great. Like, I mean, if you look at the first half, right, Grugan got the freedom of Croke Park, and he was able to spray balls left and right, and Howard essentially was dropping off, getting on plenty of ball himself, but he was all over the place. Now, when they tightened up the second half, the influence of Grugan, dissipated to a large degree. So, I think he's probably being put in there, Ger, because they're struggling at the moment. But I'm surprised they had Small out in the wing and they just didn't leave John Small in at 6. Like, I mean, John Small is your 6, if you ask me. And I would have put Howard into midfield. Now, I know they're trying to find a partnership for Fenton, but that's another area that they're struggling on.
But wouldn't he actually be a great centre forward type who is capable of doing that distribution, who's going to get on and rake a ball, and generally your 11 ends up getting on ball with the vast majority of the field in front of him if you do defend as deep as Dublin do? Yeah,
like, I mean, he look, the one thing you could say about Howard, as soon as he gets the ball, he gets his head up. You know, his vision is always looking longer than just the first 4 or 5 yards. You know, those small little hand passes. So yes, I would like. I mean, I think he could be used there. And of course, what that does then, you get McCarthy maybe into midfield. You get someone like Robbie McDade back out on the wing. Yeah. Now all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, "No, actually, hold on a second. Yeah, yeah. You know, the big guns are coming back."
We fixed it, Desi. No, don't worry. You can send us Christmas cards.
Well done, Ger.
Yeah. Come here. We haven't talked about Armagh. I legitimately think Armagh must be feeling themselves after this, and actually over the last couple of years. I mean, they had that crazy topsy-turvy game against Monaghan in last year's championship. Monaghan were right there with Tyrone. Tyrone went on and won the All-Ireland. We were all talking about all the teams in Ulster who like get close to Tyrone must be feeling, geez, we're pretty close to this. Derry get beaten by a point by Donegal. Donegal have a man sent off against Tyrone when things are going pretty well for them. So like those teams must all feel it. But with Armagh, this is like building for the last 4.5, 5 seasons, where a slew of muscular, athletic players who can all play football come up under an absolute legend who has taken some coaching from Stardust from Kerry, added it to the backroom team. This looks to me like a team who are ready to compete.
Yeah, they are. And they've been coming, as you say, for the last while. And, you know, from what I know of Kieran, you know, he's a guy who's always willing to try something different. He was always willing to kind of try, you know, the whole goalkeeper kind of a situation that you're seeing that is so prevalent now. He's no problem using the goalie as an extra man. He has no problem trying different things. He loves the traditional style of football. He likes to kick the ball. He loves getting the ball in quick, creating space inside for his full forward line, using diagonal balls. And there's no doubt about it, Jared. They are a team that are on the uppers. You know, they won't be lacking in physicality. They won't be lacking in fitness. They won't be lacking in conditioning. They won't be lacking in determination. So yeah, like I mean, they were absolutely full value for the win, and fair play to them. And you know, he would have. Desi and himself obviously know each other well. I think probably Desi nearly maybe gave him too much respect, because you could see that Dublin didn't want to engage. They didn't want to go into the tackle, knowing that, you know, like Armagh, this would be a trademark of theirs, which they'd hunt in packs and try to strip the ball of you, which they did on a number of occasions, but they could have done more if Dublin were a bit more adventurous. So that probably played into the Dublin psyche a bit. But there's no doubt about it. They've been, like, I mean, Ulster is going to be, again, you know, extremely difficult this year. You know, and added to the pack of the Donegals, the Tyrones, and the Monaghans now are a very, very ambitious, strong, you know, skillful and big, physical, big men of Armagh and Derry. You know, that's you know, so you see, you've got 5 teams now that are really pushing hard. So it's yeah, fair play to Kieran, and I can only see that that's a big fill up for them. That's going to give them massive confidence at the weekend.
If you're picking your best inside forward line in the country right now, is Rian O'Neill in it?
You know, I watched him an awful lot last year, and he can give it to you whatever way you want. He's a big boy. He's well able to mix it with you. You know, you won't intimidate him too handy. He's very skillful. He's confident. He'll try something that you don't think he will. Like, he got a score the other night nearly from out on the sideline, and he nonchalantly just stuck it over. He's that type of player. And he can shift. Like, I mean, he's fast as well. But he's also very, very good vision. He's great vision. He's able to drop out. You know, he can stay in if he wants, but he also understands. I remember last year in the championship, he also understands that actually when his team need him, he can drop out and switch out. So he's a good player on, yeah, and he's a guy that's really leading the line, which you have to do when you're in that position. That's an awful lot of responsibility being put down on you. I thought Davy Byrne got a lesson from him. Second half, not so much. Byrne, you know, got the finger out and tightened it up a bit. But, you know, he was giving him the freedom of Croke Park, and O'Neill just said, thank you very much, and took advantage.
Kerry had a winning position against Kildare at Newbridge, 5 up at one stage before half-time, a lead for most of the second half. Jack O'Connor said they tried to defend the lead with 20 minutes left to go, and that was never going to work. He said that Gainey had a chance before half-time. He said that Clifford had a chance for a point, instead went for the goal and missed it before half-time, and they should have been 7 up. And it looks like he's going to try and recall his midfielders who are not playing at the moment. I don't know if they were...
Yeah, they're out in club action this weekend.
Right. All of them? David Moran as well?
Diarmuid O'Connor and Jack Barry, and David Moran has a groin injury that's going to keep him out until the championship.
Okay, so he won't be available, right? So it's a crisis in case of emergency. Break glass ahead of the Dubs next week for midfield. I don't know. It's an interesting start to the season. They put a full team out really in the pre-season competition to make sure that they were ready to hit the ground running, and they hit the ground running and then couldn't see out the winning position.
Yeah, like again, as you well know, you have to hear what Kerry managers say and then really have a listen to what they're saying. I don't think he'd be too upset, because that was always going to be a tricky fixture yesterday. You were going into the cauldron, which is Newbridge, and Newbridge, when it gets loud, as you well know, Ger, can be quite a spot. I've had a few ding-dongs there over the years myself, and when the Kildare crowd get behind the team, which they evidently did even pre-game, massive crowds, a delay of the game, not a lot of buzz around all the new management team, fellas who would, absolutely die for the jersey of the Kildare jersey, fellas who were also quite ruthless in their time. They weren't all nice boys, so they're well able to mix it up. The fellas that are involved, and they will put a ruthlessness, and they're going to try to put a belief back in that Kildare team. So, it's Kerry will kind of sit back and go, you know what? Yeah, we probably should have seen out the game. Maybe we should have went for the jugular a bit more when we had the foot on the throat. But those last 10 or 15 minutes, as soon as Kildare were able to sniff blood and the crowd got behind them and they really squeezed up on Kerry, you were kind of feeling actually this could flip the other way, and Kildare could win this. And there was a lot of emotion, a lot of momentum. The trick now for Glenn and the rest of the management team will be keeping that going over the next number of fixtures, because you can only go to that emotional well so often, as you know. But still, look, Kildare have a very, very good outfit. They're good forwards, but the real test will come later on, especially some of their away games. That'll be the real test of that team. And then Glenn and the management team will really know what they have to deal with. For Kerry, I don't think he'd be too bothered. He tried a number of things. He still has unbelievable forward prowess and power. I still have question marks over the structure of their defence and what they're trying to play. And yes, they saw a little bit of a change, but not as much that I need to get a bit more evidence just to say, okay, they really have that defence sorted now.
What's your sense of Sean O'Shea at midfield, Anthony? Like when I looked at it yesterday, it almost felt as if Newbridge was a bad playground for him, that the game with such a big breeze as well kind of can bypass a midfielder, or is that giving him a free pass, or giving the management a free pass for something that might not be working at the moment?
I think you just mentioned it there a couple of minutes ago. He's probably a fella that really knows he's not going to be there when the time comes in the important stuff. So you're going in. It's a square peg for a round hole. You're going into a position. He's big enough and strong enough, and he's mobile enough to get around the pitch. But you're taken from what he can do, which is, I would feel, is a supplier of killer passes and sublime passes to the inside line. Now, in saying that, you've got Clifford, of course, Paddy Clifford. So, people showed last year, certainly Tyrone in the latter stages of the championship, that if you can take him out, you can take the quarterback out and a guy who can deliver those passes. But I feel that you need two of those. So, if Clifford's not going to be able to do that, you need O'Shea, who's going to give you that ability, and also give you an ability where you can run hard at teams. So I think they're better off trying to work the two of them into the team and into that line, rather than say, okay, where are we going to fit O'Shea, because Clifford's going to be our 11. Because if you can get a 6, which Tyrone showed last year, who just takes them out and just follows them all around the field, well, then you're going to need someone else to step up.
We should briefly talk about Meath, otherwise Tommy Rooney is going to bash us around the heads. No score from the Meath footballers at half-time in what by all accounts is horrific conditions in Galway. Galway managed obviously to deal with them pretty well. Not the start that Andy McEntee would have wanted to the season after all the off-season nonsense.
No, and you know what? I hate to say it, but off-season nonsense has an awful habit of rearing its head again and again and again and again. And especially if you're having results like you're having yesterday, and especially if you're not winning. So it's always sitting there in the background. Someone can always pull it out of the back pocket and say, there was this upheaval. So, for Andy, and his management team, you're going in there a little bit on a sticky wicket, and of course the pressure is on straight away. I wasn't at the game, Ger, so, and I think people who might try to cast aspersions on Andy or whoever else, or even the team who weren't at the game, you can't, but you can just deal with the evidence, right? So when you look at the scoreline, not great, didn't score for 45 minutes. Their conversion rate was absolutely shocking. I was looking at the stats of the game. I think they were at about 22%. So they had something like 20 shots on target. I think Galway had pretty much the same. But they converted something like 22% of them. So that's an enormous statistic. If you were doing that in a club game, you'd be bet out the gate. So there's no reason why it shouldn't happen in inter-county. I think, Galway were up around 55 or 60% on their conversion rate. Would that have meant that if they got their rates up, they would have won the game? Probably not, but they would have at least kicked something like, 11 or 12 scores. Galway's not a place to go, Ger, half-cocked. And as soon as the Galway lads as soon as they smell blood, the confidence gets up. They had the conditions favouring them in the first half. The crowd get behind you, and all of a sudden it's a very, very long uphill battle. And you're not in a place that you want to be. There's a lot of talent coming through me. There's a lot of younger guys who are pushing. There's probably a sense now where I don't think there's a knee-jerk reaction that you have to flood the team with these new young lads, but certainly you have to say, right, now's the time to give them a couple of shots in the league, blood them in, and let's see, can we unearth a couple for the championship. But you've got 2 home games coming. You've got the next one against Roscommon, and then you've got a nice break. So what you're hoping is out of your first 2 games, you'll have at least 1 win, and then I think they're down at home again. So the next 2 games are the ones that where Andy will be. Of course there will be pressure, but they're the 2 games to get 2 wins.
On the Mayo Donegal draw, Anthony, just to kind of focus on Donegal this morning on this game, there does seem to be a growing sense at this point that Donegal struggled to see games out. I think if it was any other team, maybe there could have been a situation where you're like, this is January, it's first round of the league and nothing to worry about. But there was kind of a familiarity about how Donegal allowed Mayo back into the game yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit harsh, to be honest with you. I think people search for labels on teams, and they search for kind of little, I suppose, kind of analogies that you can just put on a team very, very quickly. Oh, they're a second half team, or they're quitters, or they're this or that. They played a traditional game. To be honest, I think the issue for Donegal is that, first of all, they have a situation where Mayo massively squeezed them in the second half. Mayo used the conditions. They finally woke up to the fact that the conditions were in their favour, and they used them. They squeezed them very, very hard. Mayo have a lot of very, very physical, big guys, and that when they decide to actually tackle you hard and hunt you down in packs, they've done it for the last number of years. They are going to turn you over. So you've got a sticky ball, horrible conditions. You're trying to get the ball out of your defence. You've got Mayo lads hopping off you, and you're turning the ball over. Donegal don't have as big a set of 6 backs. So then you're bringing fellas back in there like Murphy and Langdon to try to get a dig out, and it seems a long, long, long way up to the full forward line, in those conditions. Should they probably put it a bit more on the scoreboard in the first half? Possibly. I think, again, where we started the top of the conversation about being formulaic, I see, Donegal are nice to look at times, but they play these triangles where, if you have the ball in the middle, you head towards the sideline, the guy in the sideline stands on the sideline, he cuts in behind you, you flick him a hand pass, then the next guy comes at an angle off him. It's very kind of, nearly, I suppose, rugby moves where there's guys coming off the shoulder constantly, there's intermixing of the ball, but it's fine. But as a defender, I'm looking at that and I'm saying that's absolutely perfect out there, because no one's coming in here to give the ball inside to McBrearty or whoever it is, so there's not really as much of a threat. And I think teams are starting to realise, actually, instead of running around after them and chasing shadows, that if you keep the core, the central part of the pitch, relatively tight, well, then you should do okay, and especially in conditions like that. So, look, it was a good fill-up for Mayo to come back when they looked kind of dead and buried. They had a good few lads. It was good to have them get Doherty back, obviously, on the pitch and score a few points. But I don't think Donegal will be panicking that much at the moment.
All right, Anthony, good stuff. Thanks a million.
No bother, lads. Talk to you soon.
A brilliant
Cheers.
picture on the back of the Irish Independent. Did you see this? It's Rob Henley and Paddy McBrearty having a little chat. Henley, cojones.
Trading, free taking, expertise. Some kick right at the end. Like, I mean, it's obviously after last year and the free against Dublin, you don't think that he can get much better than that. But I would say in just terms of the quality of the kick and how unexpected it was probably even a level above that.
Weather
Obviously not in the higher stakes, but
yeah. It'd be great to see them meet again. Wouldn't it be good if we could just fix the structure? So they're anyway. Sure, look, why would we bother having a conversation about that? It's pointless. Why have people stopped talking about splitting Dublin in 4? Says John O'Brien. Has their population and funding reduced significantly recently? Oh, John. It's like, oh, look at my winning argument here. Where as my team loses and disintegrates, at least I'm going to win the internet arguments.
yeah.
Is that what it means to be a sports fan these days? I know, fair play. I still think that we should be looking at splitting Dublin. I think long term, it's the only solution. It makes perfect sense. How can you have a population of 1 million up against whatever population of any of the other counties? You just can't. It doesn't make any sense into the future. It's about time you lads made an accurate assessment of Clare under the best manager in Gaelic football, promotion contenders, not relegation contenders. That's obviously aimed at you. You need to boost them up the power rankings. We're big fans of Clare.
Yeah,
No?
I think so. I would have thought so.
Ray says, fear for Dublin. What a time to be alive. Aina Carroll says, split Galway in 4. And Dennis Ryan says, the leagues are crying out for a Friday night live game.
He's not wrong. Could have easily been done as well, because it'd be a lot, especially those Ulster games in Division 1.
It was impossible to do. We were told the GPA were mad against it, but maybe things have changed.
Yeah, like, I mean, I would like to see the GPAs survey their players again and get a renewed take on it, because certainly when you've got any local derbies that exist in those divisions, and there's almost one a week at least, just put them on the Friday night to reduce travel time, and you immediately have another window, and it doesn't need to be a Division 1 game, believe it or not.
No, it would actually be better if it was a Division 3 and 4 game.
100%. People are not going to watch that. And I think, like, I mean, we've had this conversation around the club game. And the club game, while it's not doing inter-county numbers, it's done all right in terms of television figures. So I think this would make commercial sense too.
All right. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. It is 8:41. Let's hear a bit more from Tommy Freeman, who was watching Monaghan draw with the All-Ireland champions Tyrone yesterday, alongside our reporter Aisling O'Reilly.